Hi guys, this is Fox. This is probably the first time you're hearing my voice on this channel. If you've been around for a while and hanging out with this little art and music journey I have going on here, thank you for sticking with me. It was requested that I do a tutorial on how I paint these bright, colorful skies with some fluffy clouds, kind of like the one you're seeing in the photo. So I figured while I have some time off, I'd go ahead and do that. Before we go too much further, I just wanted to let you guys know the techniques that I use in this video are kind of brush killing, if you will. If you have some brushes that you really like, I would highly recommend going and finding a little cheap set, something that you don't mind just destroying. I've put an image up on screen of a recent set that I purchased from Joann's. It was $10 for all of the brushes you see, and they will work perfectly for the technique we'll be using today. If you don't want to buy this set in particular, I would just recommend looking for a stiff brush, something that can take a bit of a scrubbing technique. If you get something too flimsy, you'll have a little bit of trouble with it, but I will link this set down in the description if you are interested in it. I went ahead and took a photo of all the colors I'll be using on this painting today, but they'll also be linked down in the description if you're interested in picking any of them up for yourself. You're welcome to follow this tutorial exactly as how you see here, or put your own spin on it and change some of the colors or change them up entirely. It's very open to interpretation and works pretty darn well with just about any color combination. So let's go ahead and get started. As you can see here, the video has been sped up. It was way too long to keep at its normal speed or anything slower than what you're currently seeing, so feel free to pause or go back as many times as you need. I'm starting off with a 19mm filbert brush and just going in with a very loose crisscrossing motion, picking and choosing my colors, placing them on the canvas, and then just blending them as I go. I find that the 19mm filberts are very good for blending these big areas and just kind of starting out. As a side note, I don't do anything to my canvas typically before I start. I just go in with a very nice base coat of paint and kind of work my way around that. Coming up to this next part, this is where I put down my placeholder for my moon. I'm just taking a little jar lid and painting the edges and gently pushing and twisting against the canvas so I get a nice outline. For some reason I have yet to make myself a circle stencil. But after that, I go ahead and fill it in to give a nice base coat of white and blend out that lower edge to give that misty effect for our clouds later. Next, we'll start to build up the base layer for our clouds. Here I'm just switching back and forth between two different round brushes and applying the paint to the canvas using small circle-like motions with about moderate pressure, almost like you're trying to scrub the canvas with paint. This is also where we need to maybe not worry so much about what happens to our brushes. We create that nice smoky effect at the bottom by really scrubbing the canvas. And obviously you don't want to destroy your canvas, but it can take a little bit of pressure. Building up your clouds is also a very intuitive process I've found. I wish I could give you a bit more direction on how I do it, however, I think it is very much personal preference. You kind of build them and shape them to how they look good to you. It does take a little bit of practice and just trial and error to get those organic shapes. The cool thing about acrylic paint is if you don't like something, you can just wait for it to dry and then come back and add to it or cover it up, and that works really, really well with these clouds. Now I'm just going in and adding a bunch of stars. The reason I'm doing this now is as we add details to the clouds, some of those stars will either disappear or get pushed into the background and you'll get a nice layered natural look. I'm using a small soft bristled kid's toothbrush I bought years ago to do this, and just using watered down white to flick onto the canvas. I use a combination of thick and thin paint. A thick paint, which doesn't have as much water, will give you a fine, smaller looking star, and a thin, watered down paint will give you bigger and more loosely spread stars. Here I'm just adding another layer of white to the left side of the moon to make sure that highlight is nice and bright, and then blending it down to the blue that we have in the background. Now I'm just going in and building a bit of dimension to the clouds, either adding highlights or shadows. This is where it becomes important to remember where your light source is, and in this case I'm using the moon. And to add highlights, I just add a bit of white to our base color and place it where I think the light is hitting. And for shadows, I just kind of place it on the opposite side and just kind of place them where I see fit. Again, this part becomes very intuitive and just kind of adding and subtracting color as I see fit. This entire time I am still using those tiny little circle-like motions and scrubbing the canvas while I'm doing this. At this point, I just decided to come in and start adding a little bit of detail closer towards the bottom of the canvas and adding some of these tiny little clouds to make it look like they are really drifting off into the distance. Additionally, I did fill in the rest of the canvas with some random colors and just use some big long horizontal motions to blend it all together. Yet again, I'm just adding more white to our base colors and adding some stronger highlights to the edges of the clouds where I think they belong. At this particular moment, I had to step away for a while, and so I let the canvas dry completely, and then I came back and just started adding more of those white highlights to the clouds, and just kind of using the same techniques that we've gone over. So at this point, I think I'll just kind of let the music play, and you can follow along if you wish, or just kind of see where the painting goes. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out in the comments. I'm always happy to help. And as a little ending note, I will say that painting is a skill just like anything else, and just because you create something that you maybe aren't very fond of this time doesn't mean you won't create something amazing next time. So just stick with it and you'll get there. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. See ya!